push record. Hi Nick, good evening. Thank you for joining. Um, so thanks so much for joining the call, ladies. So I just wanted to do a quick introduction, just to sort of touch really on, there's lots of symptoms associated with menopause. So many women take or can take HRT to help symptoms, but HRT won't replace the need for us to still exercise, make those good lifestyle changes that we should do in order to improve our health and well-being. So improving your diet, nutrition and exercise, which I'm sure Lucy will touch upon as she's come on the call as she's a qualified nutritionist. And so, sleep and stress levels can have such an impact on our symptoms. Looking after our gut health is key, especially more so during menopause. So our gut health is responsible for 70% of our immune system, and actually has quite an impact as well on our mood and mental well-being. So, making those lifestyle changes can have such an impact. So, I always sort of say to people, what's in your menopause toolkit? And, in mine, try to reduce alcohol, reduce sugar, eat a well-balanced diet of essential macronutrients, so protein, carbs, and healthy fats. And then nutrition, I add in supplements, I'm bridging the gap. With what I'm not getting in my diet every single day. So, and I can talk a bit more later about the products that I recommend, that I take, that have really helped me. But I just want to start by introducing you to Lucy, who is a qualified nutritionist, and she's kindly agreed to come on the call and share some knowledge and tips with us, and how she specialises in helping women going through the menopause. So over to you, Lucy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, hi everybody. I'm just gonna
Hey.
share my screen and fingers crossed it's all gonna work. Can you see that?
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Text on my side. So, I will start by introducing myself a little bit. Oh, now my screen is freezing. There we go. Perfect. So Zoe's done a great introduction for me. So I'm a registered nutritionist. I graduated with a degree in nutrition. Who knew that was a thing you could even study? And I'm also a PT as well. And I'm the founder of Nutrition, which is my own nutrition practice. And my big area of specialty is menopause. So before running my business, I was a menopause nutritionist for an organization called Harley Street at Home Menopause. I've done some work on Harley Street as well. And I've also written some fact sheets around menopause. So menopause is very much my bread and butter. I absolutely love talking about menopause, and my particular area of focus is all around weight loss, which is why I had to title this little talk that I'm doing, Losing Weight at Menopause, What Actually Works. Because at menopause, weight gain is a really big issue, and about 60 to 70% of women gain weight through the menopause transition. So it's not just you. If you're feeling like you've gained weight, I promise it is not just you. And before I even specialized in this area, when I was just working very much in menopause generically, pretty much most of my clients are coming to me because they were gaining weight anyway, which is why I developed such a big interest in this. And actually, over perimenopause, each year, on average, women gain about 1.5 kilograms of weight. And we think this is about an average of 10 kilograms over perimenopause. So, weight gain is this very much a big issue that many women experience. And often people think it's just a case of a lack of willpower, or that they're eating too much and they're not moving enough. And sometimes that is the case. But actually, there's so much more going on at menopause that's happening to your body, like real changes that we need to understand. And I always say to people, we have to get to the root cause of why you're gaining weight in the first place in order to tackle that. Otherwise, it's sort of like putting a plaster over a bullet wound. It sort of works temporarily, but it's not going to get you those long-term results that I know that you want. So, what I want to do is just in kind of a whistle stop tour, just talk about why is weight gain easier during the menopause transition, but also give you a few little like tips and tricks that I use in my clinic all of the time. So the first thing that I feel like I have to bring up is hormonal changes. Menopause is full of them. And through menopause, your estrogen levels are declining. And this can cause two things to happen. It can cause you to lose muscle. And our muscle is what we would call kind of very metabolically active. It burns a lot of calories compared to body fat, which doesn't really burn many at all. So you're losing muscle, which means you start burning fewer calories. But also you're more prone to just gaining body fat, but also you're more likely to put fat down around your tummy. So a lot of my clients will say to me, Lucy, I've just developed this spare tire overnight. Like, what is going on with me? And it is because of this loss of estrogen. You don't lay the fat down around kind of your bust and your thighs as much. It tends to go around your tummy. So first thing we need to think about then, hormonal changes. The second one I've sort of already touched on, but muscle loss essentially. From the age of 30, we actually start losing 3 to 8% of our muscle mass each decade. And this is only sped up by losing estrogen at menopause. Menopause is really that gift that keeps on giving. As we lose that muscle, we start burning fewer calories. And ultimately, for a lot of cases, what sits at the heart of weight loss is all around kind of calorie balance. So how many calories you're burning versus how many you're eating. And if you're burning fewer calories because you've lost muscle, weight gain is going to become much easier. We've also got insomnia and poor sleep. I mean, who knew that these could have an impact on your weight? But they very much can. And it's thought about 50% of women struggle with their sleep in one way or another through menopause. Now, insomnia itself is a menopause symptom, but we've also got symptoms like hot flushes, night sweats, anxiety that can all make sleep much, much more difficult during this stage of life. And the way that sleep can affect weight is that sleep can increase our hunger hormone and decrease our fullness hormone. And what this ultimately leads to is an increase in hunger, which means we're probably going to overeat. When we're tired, it's harder to make those really good, nutritious choices. Don't know about you, but when I'm really tired, I'm probably going to reach for things that are a little bit more sugary, for example, rather than something that's a little bit healthier. But also, we're less likely to move our bodies as well because we're tired. We don't have lots of energy to expend. So, poor sleep leads to an increase in hunger, increased chance of overeating, and probably a reduction in movement one way or another. And these factors can all lead to weight gain. We've also got high stress levels, and this is one that I really want to emphasize. Stress has such a big impact on our body, and I think sometimes we just kind of brush stress off as one of these things that, oh, yeah, I'm stressed, but like whatever. Actually, no, it could be playing quite a big role here. And menopause is a really stressful stage of life. I probably don't need to tell you that. And we have a hormone called cortisol. It's our stress hormone. And in kind of little doses here and there when we need it, cortisol is really, really helpful. But when we're stressed for a really long period of time, our cortisol levels remain high for a really long time. And high levels of cortisol for a really long time can make it harder or it makes it easier for your body to keep storing fat, particularly around your tummy. When we're stressed as well, we're probably more likely to emotionally eat. Again, when we're emotionally eating, we're probably going to overeat and we're probably not making the best food choices because, again, when we're sad, are we reaching for fruit? No, we're probably reaching for cake, biscuits, chocolate, those sorts of foods. When we're stressed as well, we're probably not sleeping well. And that leads to everything I've just spoken about on this slide. And also, again, when we're stressed, we may just be moving our body a little bit less often as well. So all of these factors can contribute towards weight gain. Another factor that we need to think about is insulin resistance. Now, because we're during the stage of life, you're more prone to laying fat down around your stomach. Your risk of insulin resistance increases. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, let me just break this down a little bit more. So, insulin is a hormone that moves sugar that comes from our food. So it moves sugar from our blood into our body cells. And in the body, in our body cells, it's either used for energy or it's stored as body fat for later use. Essentially, body fat is just a store of energy. Now, insulin resistance is a condition where our body cells become less responsive to insulin. So we're not able to move sugar from our blood into our body cells as well. And our body has to start producing more insulin to get the same response it used to. Now, high insulin levels can cause two things. One thing it can cause is it can make it so much more difficult for your body to break down fat. So you start just holding on to it. But also your appetite can increase and you might be more prone to getting carb cravings, for example, so sugary or carb cravings. So you might start overeating, and particularly if it's things like our sugary carby foods, naturally they can be quite hard to control sometimes because they taste delicious. And despite all of those factors, what ultimately does sit at the heart of weight management is around our energy balance, kind of how much we're eating versus how much we're burning in terms of calories. So in order to lose weight, you need to be in what we call a calorie deficit. So you need to be eating fewer calories than you're burning through kind of activity and movement. This is really, really important, but there are lots of factors that affect how easy it is. If you're stressed, if you're really tired, for example, we know you're probably more prone to overeat and probably going to move your body a little bit less. So we can't, despite talking about all of these factors like insulin resistance, we can't forget about our lifestyle factors. And in many of the cases, what I see when I'm working with people, if we address lifestyle factors, we can get them losing weight again. There are some circumstances where it's a little bit trickier, but in most of my cases, we address lifestyle factors and it makes a big difference. So what can you actually do then to lose weight at menopause? I've spoken about all the factors, but let's actually think now what we can do. What I would say is the first thing you need to do is identify any of those factors that we've just spoken about that could be affecting how easy it is for you to manage your weight. For example, if you are really, really stressed, stress management might need to be kind of top of your priority list because for all the love in the world, you could be eating in a calorie deficit, but if you are stressed to the max, your body's just going to be clinging onto body fat. So we need to sometimes prioritize things that might not seem like the obvious thing to do when it comes to weight management. But like I said, in many cases, we can address kind of our basic lifestyle habits, such as our diet, and that should be quite effective in supporting weight loss. So I want to go through just a couple of different things now that hopefully will apply to many people who are watching and joining us. And the first thing I want to talk about is food quality and quantity. So as I mentioned, a calorie deficit is really, really important for weight loss. Now, personally, I think life is too short to count calories. So I encourage people to focus on the quality of their food. Because if they're eating a good quality diet, usually they end up feeling quite full. And so they can eat slightly smaller portion sizes, feel just as full, and therefore it's easier to be in a calorie deficit. So this model that I'm showing you on the screen is a model I use day in, day out with my clients when it comes to portioning their meals. It's a palm worth of protein, a cupped hand of fiber-rich carbohydrates, ideally 2 cupped hands of fruits, vegetables, salads, and about a thumb's worth of fat. So if you're using something like an oil cooking, let's not go crazy, let's use about a thumb's worth. This is a really good way to make sure you've got protein, fiber, healthy fats, which all contribute together to help you to feel full. Also helps to prevent conditions such as insulin resistance as well. And protein helps build and maintain muscle. And we've spoken about how menopause can speed up muscle loss. So protein is really important. Speaking of muscle, strength training is also really, really important. You're losing muscle at menopause. And so we need to make sure that you are building some back. And then when you've built it, you maintain it. The reason for this is if we can build back your muscle, you are going to start burning more calories each day, making that calorie deficit much easier. Now, many women worry that in order to strength train, they've got to hit the gym and become really, really bulky. It's actually really hard for women to become bulky. So if that is your fear, please do not get worried about it. And if you've never strength trained before, it's been a really long time since you have, let's just start really simple. What I recommend is aim for 2 strength training sessions a week. Start with focusing on compound movements. And when I say compound movements, what I mean is movements that work multiple muscles in one go. So things like squats, lunges, maybe like wall push-ups. So they're working multiple muscles in one go. We spend less time exercising essentially, but it's still just as effective. If you can, use your body weight, or if you want to, you could use some hand weights or some resistance bands. You don't need to go to the gym and start using squat racks or anything like that. And over time, gradually increase the weight and resistance that you're using. Now, In terms of where you're going to do the strength training, lots of options. You could literally go onto YouTube and find a class on YouTube and do it in the comfort of your own home. You could sign up to an online private community offering classes. You could find a PT so you can do one-to-one sessions, or you could go to your local gym and do some classes. But strength training is really important to build and maintain that muscle, and that is going to be a game changer for weight loss at menopause. The last thing I'm going to touch on is this question of, are you sure it's hunger and not thirst? A question I often have to ask my clients. It's really easy for us to mistake thirst for hunger. So we start maybe getting a bit peckish for something, and what we do is we automatically reach for food. What I recommend people do though is they start getting a bit peckish, is grab a glass of water, have a drink, wait 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, check in. Are you still hungry? Or actually has that hunger gone? If the hunger's gone, that was probably first and you were just thinking it was hunger, so you don't need to eat. But if that feeling is still there, that's hunger. You need to go and grab a snack. So just checking actually, is it hunger or thirst? And again, really help in terms of cutting back on things like calories without needing to calorie count. So, in summary, just to summarize everything I've said, 60 to 70% of women gain weight through menopause. There are so many factors affecting your risk of weight gain. So, we've got hormonal changes, metabolic changes, insulin resistance, high stress levels, poor sleep, and also your lifestyle factors. And in order to help your weight loss, take it back to basics. Focus on your lifestyle habits, focus on the quality of your food, think about the quantity, introduce some strength training if you haven't, and make sure that you're not mistaking thirst for hunger. That is all I want to share today. I don't want to overwhelm too much, but these are my contact details. So if you want to ever drop me an email with a question or follow me on Instagram and ask me a question, these are here, and we can always distribute those afterwards. But I'll stop sharing my screen now. And thank you for inviting me to come and talk today.
Oh, thank you so much, Lucy. That was really interesting. And I think you summed things up very nicely in quite a, quick nutshell, which is amazing. Sort of, lots of food for thought there, for people on the call, if they're not sort of implementing those things that you mentioned. But no, that was great. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to move over to Leanne, my next guest speaker. So, as I mentioned, I recommend and take some good supplements which have really helped me. I don't take HRT, so I think, I've been very much making sure that I've done tweaks to my diet, my lifestyle, and my exercise. I'm adding in more weight resistance training. I aim for 3 workouts a week. And I sort of so Leanne's a good friend of mine, and I introduced her to the supplements that I take. And I think Leanne's story, menopause story, is really inspiring. She's got quite a unique story. So, Leanne, if you can tell us a bit about, what was going on with you, and and where you are kind of now, and how you're sort of managing your symptoms.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me on, Zoe. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
So basically, probably about it would be 5 years ago, I felt like I was starting definitely. So I'm 49 this year. So it was about 44, sort of I started having basic symptoms of which I then thought was menopause. So my periods were becoming irregular. I had one of the main ones where I started. I look back now, I couldn't believe it was itchy ears. Um, and it was just strange to have that symptom. And the doctor was saying, no, no, it's fine. But I noticed definitely my mood was changing a lot, and I was suffering really with anxiety. It wasn't very bad at the start, but that's how I realised that my menopause was starting. It wasn't bad at that time, but I realised I thought this was sort of the time. And then probably I had a lot going on. My dad passed away, and then about 8 months later, I was actually diagnosed with a brain tumor, which was a benign brain tumor. This, I have to say, it had nothing to do with being perimenopausal, but when I looked more into it, it was definitely a hormonal brain tumor that I had. but it was nothing to do with starting the menopause. At this time, I'd been introduced to the supplements only just by Zoe, which was the Omegas, and I'd only just started taking them, and they actually did help quite a lot with my anxiety levels. So I highly recommend if you're suffering with that. I then went on. I had my brain tumor removed, and I had a really a sort of hard time with my recovery. But in during that time, I did carry on with taking my Omega and as well as all the other supplements. Um, it took me a little while to recover, but I'm here today to tell you, that I did get through it, and it was a hard struggle. But what it did do also was it did then bring on, sort of quite soon after the operation, for about 6 months, more of my perimenopause symptoms. So it brought it on a much larger scale, and I went more into it. I've now been sort of perimenopausal for about 10 to 11 months. Um, and all the time, though, I have been taking my Omega capsules, and it's amazing how it's helped. I did go to the doctors not so long ago, probably about 5 or 6 months ago, because I wanted to know whether I could actually have HRT, but I was told at the time, and still am today, that I can't have HRT for my symptoms. So that brings in why I've really had to concentrate, along with taking the supplements, where I am with my diet. Exercise is a must, but diet is very, very important to me. And it's such a benefit that to me, and to control my symptoms of perimenopause, because if I didn't, and not being able to take any HRT, I do struggle, especially with, I'd say, more sort of anxiety, but hormonal changes have really affected me because I'm still on certain medications. And I was on a lot of medications during having the tumour, steroids being one of them. So that did raise, and it was quite interesting when Lucy spoke about cortisol levels, stress hormones. Um, I was very stressed at that time. So the hormone imbalance was just off the scale. But I've managed to completely, by concentrating on diet, mainly exercise. I started to walk every day and still do. So I really tried to get as many steps in as possible, kind of aim between 8 and 10,000 a day. I do strength training twice a week, really, at the moment, or I do try and do three. And it is really just using, like Lucy was saying, more compound movements. But this is along with the Omegas, and I can honestly say I wouldn't be without them. I think there was a time where, and I have to say, my husband started taking them because he suffered with frozen shoulders, just one, sorry, and he went to the doctor, he had physio, and he had so many sessions and he still suffered. And I said, look, come on, take the Omegas, just try them. And he did. And touch wood, he's had no problem since. The complete pain and the stiffness in his shoulder completely went. So because he started taking them, I was actually running out. So I think there was one time where I didn't get to reorder them in time. And my anxiety it was it was a real eye opener, because it wasn't till you stop taking something, because I've been taking them so long, that I actually realised, wow, the fact that I haven't taken them, I think it was about 3 week period. It was very bad, shall we say, in this house. Just how I felt, completely felt my tiredness, even the fatigue that I felt was just unbelievable. So the megas for me are just an everyday thing in my life that is a must, that I must take, as well as the other things. I can honestly say now that I just feel just back to my normal self. Obviously, controlling the menopause can be difficult sometimes, which we're all going through, but I can say that I'm in a very good place at the moment. So, yeah,
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing that.
that's
Um,
okay.
and I think, I think Lucy will probably agree because she's a sort of professional in nutrition that your body can't produce naturally omega, so you do need to take them through your diet or through supplements. And also they're not just they're good for sort of inflammation because our menopausal body suffers with so much inflammation. I mean, for me, my aches and pains were absolutely unreal. And
Yeah,
these have really, really got on top of my aches and pains, as well as my night sweats and hot flushes. My mood's improved. So for me, sort of, the cognitive side as well, my brain fog. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's definitely improved for me. And these are a really good quality one. They're a bioavailable product, so your body recognizes that it takes the nutrients in. And it might take a while for them to sort of kick in and work. For me, it was about 4 to 5 weeks. And as much as I love fish, I don't eat fish every day. These are like bridging the gap with me getting my sort of sufficient daily recommended amount of and vegan meat. These are a vegan omega as well, so they're not fishy. They source it from the algae that the fish feed on. So it's actually a really good quality supplement. So it's not necessarily cheap, like you can buy in the shops, but it's a really good product, and there's lots of good testimonials, and obviously Leanne's just sort of been a testament to that. But yeah, so has anybody got any questions for Leanne or Lucy? I mean, Lucy obviously she does this as a business. So if you were looking to have more of a one-on-one type, somebody that could really sort of help you on the sort of diet side of things. That's kind of what Lucy does. So if you wanted her details, obviously I'm sort of networking with Lucy. We sort of networked through social media, so I can share her details with you. But if anybody's got any questions for Lucy at this time, because now's the time to ask because she's a professional in nutrition.
I
I mean,
sometimes
I
take
mean,
Do
I
you
a good
sorry.
silence. I was going to say, I
Well,
take a silence as a good silence.
yeah. Well, I was going to ask then, Lucy. So, what would you recommend in terms of protein? Would you recommend that you have protein in every meal?
Yes, I would absolutely. For multiple reasons, we do need protein for so many different reasons. We could probably be here all day talking about what protein can do, but particularly at menopause, because you are losing that muscle, protein essentially forms the building blocks of our muscle, so we've got to make sure we're eating it. But so I mentioned insulin resistance. Protein helps to, in combination with carbohydrates, can just help to balance our blood sugar levels, so can help to prevent insulin resistance. So getting that palm's worth of protein at every meal, I absolutely recommend. If you're snacking throughout the day as well, if you can get some protein in there too, that's great. But I just want to add a lot of people, there's a lot of hype around protein at the moment. You literally only have to walk into the supermarket and you see protein plastered everywhere. Protein is important, but I do not know a single nutritionist or a case in this country, in the UK at least, where protein deficiency is like really, really common. It is incredibly rare. So most of us are getting enough protein because actually protein can be found in things like pasta, for example. I think if you have like an average or the recommended serving size of pasta is like 75 grams dry, I think that's got around 10 grams of protein in it. So if you're then adding a protein source on top of that, having that 3 times a day in your meals, you will be getting enough protein. Um, if you're someone who is super, super, super active, your protein needs are probably going to be a little bit higher. And that's when just talking to someone in an individual case will be important just to make sure you are getting enough. But yeah, most people focus on that balanced plate model that we spoke about, the palm of protein, and you will be all good. And if you eat meat or eat meat proteins or animal-based proteins, but also eat your plant-based proteins as well, because they're packed full of vitamins, minerals, and also fiber. And actually, we've got a fiber deficiency in this country, so fiber is really important.
Interesting. Did you have a question, Nick? You look like you're. Oh, you're on mute.
No, no, I was just thinking that's really interesting about the protein. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
you. Yeah. Sorry, I
I just had
thought you looked like you were going to ask a question.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions?
Does Lucy have a Facebook page or Instagram or anything like that we could follow? Does she share like tips or anything like that on social media?
Yes, I do. I am incredibly active on Instagram. So my handle is at lucy.nutrition. Or you can go onto Facebook and type in nutrition, and I'm on there. I try to post regularly, but life is
Brilliant.
busy and chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow Lucy on Instagram.
Okay, that's great. I'll have a follow
If you
tonight.
can't find her, Leanne, I can point you in the right direction.
Cool.
And she doesn't just work with local clients, do you, Lucy? It's like all over.
Yes, that is the beauty of working online, is you can work with people far and near. So I actually work at the Well Retreat in Brackley, if anyone is local to Brackley. So I've got
Yeah.
a monthly clinic there, which is the first Monday of the month. And then otherwise I'm working online every day. And I think my furthest client as of yet is Abu Dhabi, which is very
Wow,
far for me. It
awesome.
followed me through my last job. I don't think I've been advertising to the people of Abu Dhabi, but it's quite nice working with people from all walks of life, to be honest.
Yeah,
Keeps me on my feet with different foods that are available in different cultures.
definitely.
Brilliant. Because also, Lucy, the other thing as well that I've sort of read about myself is that as we go through the menopause, our bodies struggle to sort of tolerate gluten and dairy and think, what's your kind of take on that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of talk around in terms of dairy, taking that one first, is the enzyme lactase is what digests the sugar lactose, which is found in dairy. And you might have heard of lactose intolerance. For some people, as they get older, either the enzymes don't work as well, for example, so they just struggle to start tolerate processing it. That's lactose intolerance is really common. You've then got things like celiac disease, which is this autoimmune condition that's triggered off by gluten, which is a protein in kind of wheat-based foods, for example. And then you've got, oh God, I don't know the technical term. It's either gluten sensitivity or gluten intolerance. But actually, the percentage of people who have actual like celiac disease, I think it's 1% of the population. So it's very small. But from my last job, I used to focus a lot around digestive health at menopause. And I did see, even though there wasn't enough research to back it up, at least anecdotally with the people I was working with, I would see no end of people who hit perimenopause, menopause, and started experiencing digestive issues. And they would find that certain foods would start triggering those symptoms. They could never get medically diagnosed for anything, but they would find that, oh, suddenly I can't eat this food. And it might have been something dairy based, or it might have been something containing wheat. But then it was really important for us to identify, well, is it gluten? Is it the lactose? Or is it another ingredient in there that you're not tolerating, so that we could just get them to the point where they weren't eliminating foods. That basically people will come to me eliminating lots of different foods, barely eating anything. And what I would try and do is pinpoint exactly what it is. Because actually foods like dairy are super important if you can eat them and want to eat them, because they've got calcium in them, which is really important at menopause because your risk of osteoporosis increases and calcium supports bone health. But actually, foods containing gluten and wheat, often in the UK, if they're made with wheat flour or white flour, they're fortified with calcium and iron. So if you start cutting those foods out, as a nutritionist, I start thinking about those nutrients and how can we replace them. So there is a link definitely somewhere, but I don't know what the actual statistics are, or we're not 100% sure of the reasons behind it either, which is almost a bit more annoying, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I must admit, I I still do like to have bread, but I definitely limit it now from, and I'd sort of opt for sourdough rather than, normal bread. And I seem to be able to tolerate that better than normal bread.
And I would
Um,
see quite a lot of that in some of the people I was working with. At this hour of the day, I can't remember why, but I do remember seeing a lot of people who go, yeah, and I can have sourdough, but I can't have normal bread.
yeah. Just to let you know, we've got literally just over a minute left on the call. So unless anybody's got any more questions, I think we might just have to wrap it up. Um, just because it's going to cut off soon. But I just want to say thanks so much for joining us, Lucy and Leanne, and talking us through all that. That was really interesting. And for Leanne sharing her journey. And if you want if you want Lucy's details, I can, get in touch with me and I can forward those on. But thank you so much for joining us this evening, ladies. It's been lovely.